Today, we are gonna make one of these. It is the cutest thing I have ever seen. All right, what you're gonna need for this, a few things. First and foremost, you're gonna need some material. It does not have to be Halloween material. I am using the Riley Blake Ghoul Friend pack. It's a charm pack and they are 5x5 squares. You are going to need a piece of a flannel, not flannel, yeah, flannel, that, think about it, that is at least 15 by 15. You are going to need a pattern or draw out your ghost on something. Let me show you what I do. So how I do my patterns is I do it on some kind of paper. This is like a drawing paper, so it's really thick and sturdy. And I draw out my little pattern on that. Then I pick up from the dollar store cutting boards. They're just plastic cutting boards, but they're sturdy and I use them all the time for my templates. You're gonna trace your ghost onto that, and then you're gonna cut it out. I do use the outside edge to cut out the little eyes and mouth so that I have specific template for those as well. Especially if you're gonna make more than one. If you're just gonna make one, you could probably draw it on paper and then put it onto your quilted material. I'm not doing that. I'm making several. So I am creating a template. I pretty much do a template for everything because I'm gonna want to go back and make it again. All right, what we're gonna do is we are going to make 3 across, 3 down with the 5x5 squares. That's about a 15 by 15 inch square. That's why you need your flannel to be about 15 by 15. Now we are gonna sew these together, so that's gonna shrink it a little bit. And then I am cutting mine in half, so you can see these are the 5x5 right here. And then I cut them in half and I rearrange them so that it's a little busier. I like the busy pattern. Maybe you have an old quilt top. You can use that. If you've already got something that's put together, just cut out a 15 by 15 square and put it with your flannel, cut your ghost out and go to town. This is with the 5x5 squares. So I'm gonna buzz these together and then cut them in half, and then we will get to the good stuff. I am going to sew all of these at 1/4 of an inch at a 2.5 stitch length, and I am going to do them in 3. So 1, 2, 3, 5x5s, and then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then really you need about one more 2.5 inch strip. So one more of those to make it so that you could do it either way. I do want to remind you that when you're sewing these, you're going to want to backstitch at the beginning and the end on each one of those. And then here I am cutting out the 2.5 inch strips from the 3 5x5 squares that I sewed together. I have cut them all into my strips, and now I am going to sew each of these strips together so that we can create the either up and down or sideways. We're gonna just see what we decide to do. So I'm gonna sew these together and then we'll come back. And again, I am sewing these at about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance at a 2.5 stitch length. And as I was sewing, I found that the material was moving around pretty good. So I started using the clips. You'll notice that I started putting them at the seams. It just made it easier than fighting the material moving around. I have them all sewn together. I'm gonna go iron them, but what I'm debating here is, you can see that this has gone down quite a bit. I can get my ghost on here going vertical, but if I wanted to go horizontal, I would need to add at least one more strip to this to really make it work. Gotta think about where it's going. So it's going to go down there, and then I would have that. And I'm just trying to decide, do I want that in the middle? It just feels like a lot more wasted material. I think I'm going to stick with it going vertically. And the reason I'm choosing that is I just feel like I'm wasting less material. And if you're a sewist, you know that's important. All right, I'm going to go iron this and I will be back. Looking at the walls in my sewing room, I guess I need to decorate a bit. We have it all ironed and pressed beautifully. It is so cute. I'm loving it. Now what I'm going to do is place my little ghost on here and get it kind of lined up. I think I'm going to get it centered. And I'm going to try to work around his little black eyes going into anything dark. They're probably going to cross over a little bit. Not really sure if it even matters. But I am going to push him kind of towards the edge and get him cut out. Yeah, I think just like that. Like the purple. Perfect. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is have him down. I am going to trace around it with a heat pen. I don't really know what they're called, but when you iron on them, the ink disappears. Like magic ink. So I'm going to go around it here and then I feel like it's not rolling right now. Sometimes you got to get them going a little bit. There we go. Now we got it rolling. We're going to go ahead and trace around it. They do make one that is like a white. And I may go over some of the darker edges just to make sure that we can see it, because what we're going to do is after we trace this, we are going to cut it out. And before we cut it out though, we are going to sew on this line. And I just like to kind of have it set in place before I go cutting it out. And then I will probably quilt it as well. I just probably just follow the sew lines right off to the side so it looks a little quilted without being quilted. And I think I'm going to use this little white one here going over this because it will make it just a little bit easier to see. Because I'm not going to see that purple ink on there. No way. I mean, maybe, but I doubt it. And the cool thing is it does take it a little minute to get set up. Okay, I do have mine cut at about 12 inches high by 12 inches wide, give or take. Might be a little bit shorter because when I was doing it for myself, I was like, that's a big ghost, but he's absolutely adorable. So I think what I'm gonna do, I do have my piece of flannel here, and so I am going to go ahead and pin him on. Then I'm going to cut my little ghosty out, and I'm just going to do a basic pin here. I'm not going to use a bunch, just something to hold it in place, keep it from moving around too much. I'm not cutting first. I am going to sew around the edge, and I'm just doing a straight stitch. I think I said cut, sorry. I am sewing him, and I am just going to use a straight stitch at a 2.5. Use a couple more pins here, and get that to where he's not going to go anywhere, but I can sew around him. I'm going to just put, ow! one more in the middle, and I am using an orange thread. You can use whatever you want. This is, I don't know, I just like the orange in this, and I feel like it'll be fun, and so that is what I'm using. And I'm just gonna start kind of midway here, and I'll be right back. I am basically sewing this exactly on the line that I traced from my ghost template. We have the little ghost sewed onto the flannel. I do sew it on the back side of the flannel, and I'm going to take the pins out. I do it on the back side so that if there is a print, it's not really going to show through on any of these lighter colors that you might be using. You might have some flannel that works perfectly and doesn't have a lot of color to it. And I forgot I needed to pull that back around. Okay, so now I'm gonna grab my good scissors, and I'm basically just going to cut out fairly close to the edge of this, and I'll probably just come back to you. I'm cutting out the ghost literally less than 1/8 of an inch next to the seam. Now we have our little ghost cut out. Oh my gosh, she's gonna be so cute. I have got to get some little black eyes cut for him. So let me do that. I'm gonna grab my little black material. That was one thing I forgot to tell you to grab. You are gonna need a strip, probably just a couple of inches wide, maybe 5-6 inches long, to be able to cut out 2 eyes and 1 mouth. All right, let me go find some material, and actually I might have some right here. Oh yay, I do. Okay, let's go with, do we want to use all black? I guess we're gonna have to, because everything else is really printed. So we're gonna go with black material, and we are going to trace 2 of these little eyeballs. Actually, we're just going to trace 1, and then we are going to double it over and cut it out. We're gonna sew that on, those 2, and then this one is his little mouth, and we are gonna go around that. Okay, we have his little mouth. Before I go to put these on, cut this out and put that on, I am going to stitch, just see the seam, I am going to just stitch right at about 1/8 of an inch, just to give it that really quilted look, so that, I don't know, it just looks more finished. I kind of like that. I'm going to back stitch here, and I am literally just going at like 1/8 of an inch. Don't you love the sound of a juki? I know I do. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and finish doing all of the seams on here. I'm gonna cut out his little eyeballs, and then we will sew those on. This top stitch really does add a finished look to your project, and it's gonna hold it firmly to the flannel that is reinforcing it from behind. The next thing we need to do is put the eyeballs and the mouth on. I did cut out an extra mouth because I'm doing several of these, so I was like, why not go ahead and just cut it out and be done with it? So I have 2 eyeballs and 1 mouth, and we are going to try to center these. I kind of cheat and do a little like this, like let me get the eyeballs about where they're meant to be, and that way I can feel better about where they are on there. And then we're just gonna pull that up. And basically close enough, but I like the O at the top. Yeah. And that looks fantastic. Yay. I would say if you're gonna quilt on this, you should quilt before you stitch it down, because it did get just a little bit of pucker at the bottom on this one. Not noticeable, but you know, if it's for you, you want it to be like awesome sauce. Okay, I am going to pin these down, and then I'm going to stitch them literally at the edge with a straight stitch, using a 2.5, and get them so that they do not go anywhere. These are just the cutest, are they not? Oh my gosh, so stinking cute. I just absolutely love how adorable these are. I'm gonna sew on the eyeballs. I'm trying to think if there is anything else I need to do. No, and then we will put this on. I'm putting mine on a t-shirt today for this tutorial. They really are meant to go on a sweatshirt because it's fall. It's a October kind of thing you're gonna wear. I live in Arizona, so it's still t-shirt weather in October. We don't get cool until late October. And then really then a sweatshirt really isn't needed. But I'm gonna make a few sweatshirts for all of those of you in the Midwest, East Coast, and up in Washington where my daughter is. So if anybody wants one, let me know. I will make a few extra and put them on the website. You can find them at 62hch.com. 62 handcrafted happiness. You'll also want to join me on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. We are done sewing on the eyeballs and the mouth. Eyeballs. Don't know why that's making me laugh, but it is. We have cut off all the little threads. Cut off some of these longer ones back here. And you can see the little stitching is very close to the edge. He's so cute. I love it. Okay, the next thing that we are going to do, and I am not going to do a zigzag stitch around this. It is just going to go on just like this one. I did a straight stitch really close to where this stitch already is. I don't know if it's blurry, but that is what I'm going to do, is try to stay as close to that as I can. I am going to be putting it on a black t-shirt, so let me grab that. One thing I do recommend is when you go to the dollar store and get these, there are two of them in there. One you can cut up for your template, and then the other one you are going to want to use in between the front and the back of the t-shirt so that you're not pinning this to both layers, because you're not sewing it to both, you're just sewing it to the front of the shirt. Let me grab all my equipment. I will come back and we will pin it on the t-shirt. Almost forgot to bring you along with me. All right, I have a black t-shirt. The top of the neck, this right here, I'm doing 2.5 inches down. I was thinking about 3, but it just seems so far down on it that, I mean, it is 12 inches long and 12 inches wide. So I'm just torn. There's 3 and there's 2.5. And I guess what I can do is decide when I put my little ghosty on here, which one looks better. The 2.5. I'm gonna bring it up just a little bit. This would be really cute on a white t-shirt too, or an orange one, or, you know, all of those things. I think 2.5 is good, but I'm gonna look to see if I am about the same from one side to the other All right, so I am at about 6.5 inches on that side. And I am at about a little over 6.5. Not that it needs to be moved very much, but let me get that to, maybe we'll go like right about there. So we're right about centered up. I have it on there. I'm going to pin it down. Just gonna grab all my pins I just stuck in my little cushion over here. And I don't want to use a ton of pins right there. And I'm just going to pin down far enough that it doesn't get in the way of my stitching when I go to sew this. I'm going to use a few, but I really am going to stay away from using too many, only because your fingers get caught on them when you're trying to hold things down. Not fun. Not fun at all. Oh my goodness, this is just going to be so cute. Even on the black. This one has a lot of black in it. That's why I was like, oh, this would be cute on one of the white t-shirts. This would be cute on an orange t-shirt. Bright yellow one. So many options. All right, so we do have enough pins in here. Don't you think? Feel like that's good? I do. And you know what? I am gonna pin one in the middle just to hold it all there. Okay, now we are gonna slide this out. Comes out much easier than it goes in. And the one thing we really have to keep in mind is we are only stitching on this top layer, and we want to be very careful that we are not pulling anything in from underneath. You'll notice, if you watch me, I usually have my big extended tray on my machine, and I do not this evening because I want to make sure that I do not get it caught underneath. So let's jump in, and I want to make sure that this is not sticking. Oh, look, we're already messed up. All right, we're going to get the t-shirt all laying down nice and smooth. Pulling the t-shirt from the bottom away because I want to make sure that I do not get that caught in and under this one. And I'm going to start a little ways out, and I am running right next to the stitch that I did for the outline earlier. That is how I'm going to run it. I'm going to stitch around this on fast forward, and I will meet you back here in a second. It is really important to make sure that you are constantly checking the back, pulling it away, and making sure that you're not stitching it into the front of the t-shirt. It's happened to me before. I can't say it enough. Check it often throughout the process. Let's see how we did. I'm not really sure. This t-shirt is extremely soft, and that means it kind of moves around when you're sewing on it. So I was just curious if it's going to lay flat or look funky in any way. Let me get my shirt. Work with me. Oh yeah, that is so cute. Okay, let me get these pins out. Stick them back over here in the corner. cushion. All right, so let's see how that came out. Oh my goodness, that is adorable. Let me cut all my little threads off because nobody wants threads hanging out. Look at that. So cute. Oh my gosh. They're so adorable. I just love making these. I hope that you jump in and make one. Literally, it shouldn't take you but about 30 minutes. And that is once you have your pattern, because you are going to need a template or a pattern to make sure that you get everything on there just the way you want it, and that your little ghosty is everything you want it to be. On that note, I'm going to say have a great night, and I will see you next time. Bye.